Number 3, political voice. We recognize that usually what we do is speak to ourselves. And in fact, if our ideas are ones that we want to be majoritarian and ones that we think can actually contend for actual power, then we need to both ramp up our voice, get it to people who can be won over and would agree with us if we gave them a chance, and yes, to use the tools and new medias and technologies and methodologies to be able to actually have our ideas be ones that actually are in debate. Number 4, and we call that the fight for what's possible. Number 4, democratically controlled economic institutions. A lot of times what happens is even when we win a policy, we give it away because the government ends up giving those policies away to corporations and institutions that blow 90% of what we hard fought and won. Whether it be through corruption or plain old graft or just the fact that the people who are actually implementing our vision aren't there for the same interest as us, we've actually giving away, we stick to one part of the fight and we give away the rest. So the idea here is to build wealth, to build power, that we need to be able to either control and build sources of wealth and institutions that actually can move us from policy to implementations in ways that builds our movement infrastructure. Number 5, governance. So what's happened then, and I think Drummond alluded to this, is that in this process, we've not only lost our ability to, we've lost our power to, but in some ways even our will to actually feel like we're capable to govern. And governance means both electing folks, getting into elected office, but the fact is that so many decisions now are made outside of the government sphere. So that we have to look at governance in all of the places and ways and all of the institutions that then, whether it be banks or communications, infrastructure, where are the places that we have to be able to contend for the places that govern the way we think and live. And we have to be able to then employ the strategies that allow us to contend for actual governance, particularly in our cities. And finally, is what we call earth to sky, which has environmental tones, but it really also means that for us, in so many of our movements, so much of our experience of what's been a national has been at the exclusion of actual local control and actual grassroots decision making. And in fact, though, in doing that, we ourselves in some ways have become parochial. That our vision of then control has been reduced to a city or a neighborhood even. And in fact, in doing that, we've actually allowed the entire apparatus to go beyond us. So we have to then be able to actually build a movement that's national, that's rooted in localities, but that's actually national in scope. So this is the ideas that we're throwing down as a national alliance. It's a conversation in process. And these are a ton of big ideas and big shifts for us, but we recognize that the places that these ideas have to become real and to not just become ideas that's in our alliance is that they have to be anchored in actual places with experiences that says, one, this can happen, but two, that this is not just a daydream. That in fact, we can have not only cataclysmic disasters like Katrina that are symbolic, but we can also have emblematic wins that point us to a new way. So I want to tell one story about what that looks like. And that's the story of Scott Carver, and I'm going to wrap it up. We had a 10-year fight to basically stop the displacement of 5,000 people in an African-American community. That fight we lost for 10 years. Through 10 years of organizing, we were able to actually finally build a partnership through media work, through everything we talked about, to actually develop Scott Carver ourselves. And this is a PowerPoint, which is much different than my PowerPoint, of a developer's vision that we won them over to what Scott Carver can look like. And the goals of Scott Carver, which is in now and being decided on, is for all of the residents to return. One-for-one replacement, right to return, that the construction will be green, green job creation by bringing a factory into the neighborhood, a community center and a museum of black history, and ongoing community building. This is the idea, and it came from the community, so that it's possible. It's possible to anchor. And I'm going to end with two things for us to consider in this next 3 days. One is that we can't just look at best practices and try and replicate them. We have to look at glimpses for something beyond in these next 2 days. And then finally, the underdrop of all of this is race and class and gender. And it's not good enough to leave this panel talking about race and moving on to the next thing. The challenge in the next 2 days is how does race and class and gender move from a special interest that we can address in the other issues, in war and in earth, to being the central axis around which we'll resolve the crisis of our planet and humanity. Thank you.